So by now, we all know the unfortunate news of Paul George and Paul George's injury. I'm here to give you a update in regards to the injury news about Paul George. Now, of course, the Clippers, they still got like 10 games left in the season, and they have to try to find a way to win at least probably 7 out of 9 of those games, just to stay afloat, to get into the play-in possibly, or of course the playoffs. So, I mean, it's going to be tough for the Clippers. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a joy ride. It's not going to be anything like that. So, it's one of them situations where, if the Clippers, can buckle down defensively, as a team, even though they're missing Paul George, they still got Kawhi Leonard, the best player on the team. And, Russell Westbrook, he's going to have to try to find a way to, maybe give a little bit more offense, because if Ty Lue is going to play him more minutes, in which I think Ty Lue will, you're going to have to find a way to give a little bit more offense and be a little bit more efficient while he's doing it. And I know that's a lot to ask for, Russell Westbrook, but that's just the way it's going to have to be if they plan on trying to, sustain where they are and get into the playoffs and, maybe avoid the play-in, or honestly, like I said, they're actually 3 games from not actually being in the play-in tournament, not even making the play-in tournament. So, the Clippers are going to have to really buckle down defensively and everything, you know what I'm saying? So, it's one of those situations where I feel like, the Clippers are going to, it's going to be tough. And I feel bad for Kawhi Leonard more than anything, man, because I'll say this much, Kawhi, coming off ACL surgery himself, you know what I'm saying? So, he really needs to, try to, stay as healthy as possible as he can. And on top of that, the Clippers got to hope that, that he can stay healthy, going into the playoffs, or, basically, this last few games of the season, and hopefully going into the playoffs, he still has enough energy to, kind of carry the Clippers a little bit until maybe possibly George can make a return. Because right now, with Paul George, it's looking at 2 to 3 weeks. And then he gets reevaluated. He has a, hyperextension, strain, what they're saying it is, hyperextended knee. And he's going to have to be reevaluated in 2 or 3 weeks, see if he's able to actually, play. Now, the good thing for Paul George, he really dodged a bullet, if you ask me, because the way that injury looked, it looked a lot worse than what the outcome actually is. And I'm glad for that. I hate the fact that he got hurt, because it's really the worst time in the world for him to get hurt, because him and Kawhi, really more than anybody else on that team, need to build that chemistry, because him and Kawhi look like they can have the best chemistry in the world. They could be the best duo in the world, but they have to build that chemistry amongst each other to become that. And the only way to do that is for both of them to be on the court. And we know throughout these 4 seasons that they've been together, they haven't been on the court much together. It's not as much as we would have liked to seen them. And now here's another setback, or should I say a major setback, because we're about to go into the playoffs and you're missing your second best player, and you got your first and your third best player, but your third best player is the one that's really not trustworthy. So it's like, for the Clippers, for their sake, they have to kind of hope within these next few games, maybe they could possibly get Norman Powell back, a guy who can drop, 20 plus points, 23, 25 plus points a game, even though he's coming off the bench. But they have to hope that they get him back, because they'll have somebody that can at least make up for some of the scoring that Paul George provides, for the most part on a nightly basis. You know what I'm saying? Just to kind of keep their offense afloat. Now, they got other guys. They got other, talent and things like that, people like that around them. But like I said, those guys not only going to have to step up, but everybody going to have to step up, because they can't let Kawhi Leonard just go out there and put up 30, 40 points each game in these last several games, which, Kawhi Leonard just might try to do that. and you're taking away a lot of his energy that he's going to need to save for the playoffs. And it's just really tough. And, I don't want to say that the season is over for the Clippers, because I don't believe that. As long as you got Kawhi Leonard and, you got a bunch of those other guys, you still could win some games. You still could win, a lot of your games. You know what I'm saying? If Kawhi is in rhythm. But the only problem is, Kawhi and the back-to-backs and all that stuff, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. You see what I'm saying? A huge problem. So, it's like, you got to be very weary of that. You know what I'm saying? You got to be. It's just one of those things you got to be weary of, and you got to hope that, Kawhi will stay healthy enough, to help maintain this team, because really, they can't really afford to lose hardly any games. They really can't. They really can't afford to lose hardly any. You know what I'm saying? And if they lose, I'd say this, if they lose more than like 2 games, I say more than 3 games, it's a possible situation where they might not even get in. And I really don't want to see that happen, of course, because, they've gotten so close. And on top of that, Russ has been a pretty decent addition. If you look at just, how he's starting to gel the team more, and how they're really starting to, they were starting to feed off each other, and they were really, just liking the fact that Russ is around and he's a good teammate and all those things. Of course he can't, of course he does still do turnovers and things like that. That's just what comes with Russ. But either way, for the most part, Russ has been, decent for the Clippers. I'll say that. And decent is all they can ask for out of Russell Westbrook, because what the Lakers got out of Russell Westbrook was the total opposite, but Paul George being out definitely hurts. It definitely hurts their chances of winning a championship, because you need a second guy like a Paul George who has the capability of putting up huge numbers, because the Western Conference is so tough. It might be a far-gone conclusion if one guy can win a team a championship. It just might be. But I'll say this. If there is one guy that I trust or that I believe in that can, put a team on his back and win a championship at this stage of his career, I would say it's Kawhi Leonard. Because LeBron can't do it anymore. He just done got too old, and he needs so much from Anthony Davis to help maintain and sustain, their team and trying to, get wins and sustain wins as going forward in the season. Now LeBron is not able to do that anymore, maintain and put a team on his back and really, take them to the promised land. He needs to depend on Anthony Davis, but we all know how that's turned out. That's not so good so far. But, regardless of that, you gotta have more than one guy, I believe. And like I said, somebody's just gonna have to step up. I agree with Kawhi Leonard, next man mentality, next man up. You know what I'm saying? Can't be no excuses. You got to go out there and try to make it happen, because making excuses is not going to get you nowhere except to the house. You know what I'm saying? Sent home. And that's not where the Clippers want to be. That's not where nobody projected them to be. And I know Paul George going out is a bad thing, but at the same time, if they can kind of get maybe a little bit of a rhythm without him, for a little bit, and kind of, go through Kawhi Leonard solely and kind of like feed, everybody feeds off of his energy and play defense, I think the Clippers will be just fine. You know what I'm saying? But playing defense is one of their Achilles heels, if you ask me, at times. So, they're going to have to really buckle down on defense more now, even more. And they're going to have to rely on their defense to win games. They can't just go out there and try to outscore people and everything like that, because you're missing a huge part of your offense and a huge part of your team. And, of course, in the long run, that can hurt. But at the same time, the Clippers got a good enough team to try to make this work and try to at least win several more games to get into the playoffs. They get into the playoffs, Paul George may come back like that first round, or, late first round or something like that. Then they'll really be, well put together again. And, hopefully it all works out. And, I'm praying for Paul George. I hope he comes back and get a speedy recovery. It's never good for any of your players to go out, but especially if it's one of the, the main players.